Good morning. This is the sermon for this Sunday, July 18th, 2021. The gospel for today has this verse about Jesus' response to the crowds. As he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. There's a lot of theology in this one sentence from Mark. The Gospels are chock full of visuals and evocative stories that can get pretty complicated. But Mark, the Gospel writer here, is able to give us the main point in just a few words. They were like sheep without a shepherd. The scene comes to mind immediately, doesn't it? Sheep in a pasture or out on a rocky place, but there's no shepherd to lead them, so they could get in trouble, eating the wrong thing, or falling, or be subject to predators. You know, being in charge of livestock is a holy responsibility, isn't it? Of course, it's fair time here in Oregon. The county fair just happened and the state fair is coming up. I love to go to the fair, especially the barns full of animals. My husband Joe is a very good sport. I drag him to every barn, and we look at the goats and the pigs and the llamas and the horses and the cows, and I even love the chicken house. Did you raise animals for the county fair? I never did. We moved a lot, and I never put down a lot of roots, but I know families who did and who do now. And I like those kids, those families. I'm so impressed at the responsibilities that the kids learn. It's a fearful thing though, isn't it? Raising animals. I know, I have chickens now at my house and I lost one to a predator. It's a very hard thing. The kids who raise animals for the fair really understand that. It's life and death. They feed them, keep them warm but not too warm, get them water, and worry and even call the vet if they get sick. I think it's the trust that the animals have for us when we care for them that is really sobering. It's up to us. We've got to do our best. A life depends on it. When you hear the gospel reading that says Jesus sees folks who need him like they are sheep without a shepherd, do you identify with how his stomach must feel right then? Somebody needs to act. They need help. Do you feel that way when you look at a need in our world or our community today? The homeless, the hungry, that's how Jesus felt. And Jesus does act. But it's not an accident that Jesus, the Son of God, who lived a life here on earth, gathers a group of people, the disciples, around him as he begins an intentional ministry of love and care. He doesn't function alone. The disciples are part of Jesus' plan. Mark particularly focuses on their ministry and life together in this area around the Sea of Galilee. There's bonding, there's care between Jesus and his disciples. They hang out together. They ask a lot of questions and make a lot of mistakes. The ministry in Galilee goes from town to town, caring for folks, healing and feeding. And the disciples participate fully. Take note, won't you, of verse 32? It says, and they went away in the boat to a deserted place by themselves. And verse 33, now many saw them going. Mark's talking about Jesus and the disciples. They have become a unit. Folks are looking to them for the help they desperately need. They're bonded. In the beginning of the reading in Mark 6, Jesus cares for the disciples, pushing them to rest because they've been pouring themselves out for others, following his lead. They're too tired to help anyone else, so Jesus shows them how important rest is. Don't you think these snippets from Mark's gospel point us to recognize that Jesus and the disciples were a team? focused on good. Sure, sometimes Jesus has to reorient the team, and sometimes they act pretty scared and seem to have forgotten what he's been teaching them. But a team they are. I believe that when the church in our time is functioning at its best, the world sees a team taking action, caring for those in need, feeding, sheltering, being the church. One way the church shows its care for each other is in the sacrament of Holy Communion. People need to eat. Jesus shows his care for the disciples and others in the gift of food, often actually in the Bible. And when we share communion together, it's an act of caring. As Jesus cares for the disciples, so he continues to care for the church. And the church, I believe, is at its best when we show community care. Sometimes in church, we take the time to honor one person or one group and lift up their contributions and caring for a larger world. But mostly, a church that is following Jesus is getting things done, caring for their neighbors with the compassion that Jesus models for us. It's why we still need the church, friends, to help us band together to reach out for good. Jesus and the disciples were the church in that moment of time. Today, we are the church. I challenge us to work together as Jesus taught. Amen.